The sound of breaking glass shattered the silence of the Christmas Eve supper, followed by men's voices shouting accusations that would seal her fate. And Lily Lancaster knew in that crystalline moment of horror that she had perhaps 5 minutes before they came for her with ropes and rage. She had been washing dishes in the back room of the boarding house where she worked, her hands red from the scalding water, when she heard old Mrs. Henderson scream. The crash came next, then boots thundering up the stairs, and through the thin walls she caught fragments of words that made her blood turn to ice in her veins. Her employer, the widow Henderson who had given her work and shelter these past 8 months, was dead. Poisoned, they were saying. And Lily had served her the evening tea not an hour before. Her fingers trembled as she dried them on her apron, her mind racing through the impossibility of it all. She had done nothing wrong, had simply brought the tray as she did every evening at 7 o'clock sharp, the delicate china cup filled with chamomile tea that Mrs. Henderson favored. But she knew how these things went in Yuba City, California in the winter of 1885. A young woman with no family, no connections, no money for a proper defense. She would be tried and hanged before the new year dawned. The December wind howled against the windows as Lily made her decision in the space of 3 heartbeats. She would run. It was her only chance, slim though it might be. She grabbed her wool coat from the peg by the kitchen door, thrust her arms through the sleeves, and slipped out into the night just as heavy footsteps reached the top of the stairs inside. The cold struck her like a physical blow. Snow had been falling since late afternoon, unusual for this part of California, but not unheard of in the deeper winter months when storms swept down from the mountains. Already several inches blanketed the muddy streets of Yuba City, transforming the rough frontier town into something almost beautiful in its frozen stillness. Lily's breath came in white clouds as she ran, her thin boots slipping on the icy ground, her skirts tangling around her legs. Behind her, the shouting grew louder. Someone had discovered her absence. She heard her name called out, not in kindness but in accusation, and the sound spurred her faster down the alley behind the boarding house. She knew she should head for the woods beyond the town limits, but the snow was coming down harder now, thick flakes that obscured her vision and would just as easily obscure any tracks she left. It might work in her favor if she could just get far enough away. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she ran past the darkened shops and houses, most of their windows glowing with warm lamplight and the promise of family gatherings she would never know. Somewhere a church bell tolled the hour, 8 slow chimes that seemed to mark the countdown of her freedom. She could hear the men behind her now, at least 5 or 6 of them by the sound of it, their voices carrying clear and cold through the snowy night. Lily's lungs burned as she pushed herself harder, leaving Main Street behind and stumbling toward the outskirts of town where the buildings grew sparse and the wilderness began. Her fingers were already numb despite her gloves, and she knew with a sick certainty that she might very well freeze to death out here before morning. But that seemed preferable to the alternative. At least the cold would be quicker than the rope. She had nearly reached the tree line when she saw him. A man on horseback, sitting motionless astride a large bay gelding in the middle of the snow-covered road that led north out of Yuba City. He was silhouetted against the white landscape, a dark figure made darker by the heavy coat he wore and the wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his face. For a terrible moment Lily thought he must be one of her pursuers, sent ahead to cut off her escape, and she skidded to a halt in the snow, looking desperately for another route. But there was nowhere else to go. To her left lay open fields that offered no cover. To her right stood a steep embankment that dropped down to the half-frozen river. And behind her, getting closer with every second, came the mob that wanted her dead. The rider moved then, urging his horse forward several paces until he blocked the road completely. Lily could see him better now in the dim light reflecting off the snow. He was tall, broad-shouldered, somewhere in his middle 20s if she had to guess, with dark hair that curled slightly beneath his hat. His face was hard-planed and serious, his eyes shadowed but fixed intently on her. She took a step back, then another, her body coiled to run even though she had nowhere left to go. The shouts behind her were very close now. She could hear individual voices, recognizing some of them. Bill Tucker from the general store, James Morrison who worked at the bank. Even young Deputy Walsh, who could not have been more than 19 and who had always seemed kind when their paths crossed. The stranger on horseback studied her for a long moment, his gaze moving from her frightened face to the approaching mob and back again. She saw his jaw tighten, saw something shift in his expression. Then he swung down from his horse in one fluid motion and stood directly in her path, between her and freedom, a wall of solid muscle and determination. "Please," Lily gasped, her voice breaking. "Please, I did not do what they are saying. I need to go. I need to run." He did not move. Behind her, the mob burst into view, at least 8 men now, some carrying torches that hissed and sputtered in the falling snow. They saw her standing there with the stranger and slowed their pace, spreading out in a rough semicircle as they approached. Bill Tucker stepped forward, his face red from exertion and cold. "That is her," he called out, pointing at Lily with a thick finger. "That is the woman who murdered Mrs. Henderson. Step aside, stranger. This is town business." The cowboy, for that is clearly what he was based on his worn leather chaps and the rifle strapped to his saddle, turned to face the men. He moved with a casual grace that somehow made him seem more dangerous rather than less. When he spoke, his voice was low and calm, with an edge of iron beneath the quiet words. "The lady does not look like a murderer to me." "You do not know anything about it," James Morrison sputtered. "You are not from around here. This woman poisoned a respected member of our community and she will face justice for it." "Justice?" The cowboy's tone held skepticism. "Looks more like a lynch mob to me." Deputy Walsh pushed forward, his young face troubled but determined. "I have to take her in, mister. It is my job. There will be a proper trial and everything." "A trial on Christmas Day?" The stranger shook his head slowly. "With feelings running this high, she would be dead before New Year's, trial or no trial, and we all know it." "That is not your concern," Bill Tucker growled. "Now step aside before you find yourself in trouble too." The cowboy did not move. Instead, he reached back and rested his hand on the butt of the revolver at his hip, not drawing it but making his meaning clear. "Cannot do that," he said evenly. "She is under my protection." The words hung in the frozen air between them, impossible and absolute. Lily stared at the stranger's broad back, unable to comprehend what was happening. This man did not know her, had no reason to risk himself on her behalf, and yet here he stood facing down 8 angry men as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Your protection," Bill Tucker laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Who the hell are you?" "Name is Hunter Steele. I have a ranch about 10 miles north of here, and this woman is coming with me." "The hell she is." James Morrison started forward, but Hunter Steele shifted his weight in a way that froze the banker in his tracks. There was something in the cowboy's bearing, some quality of controlled violence barely held in check, that even Lily could sense. These were not empty words. He would fight for her if it came to that. Deputy Walsh held up both hands, trying to defuse the situation. "Look, Mr. Steele, I appreciate that you are trying to help, but this is the law we are talking about. I have to bring her in." "Then bring her in tomorrow," Hunter said. When tempers have cooled and people can think straight, when she can get a fair hearing instead of a rope. She will run, Bill Tucker protested. Not if I give my word she will not. Hunter turned slightly, enough that Lily could see his profile. I will vouch for her. She can stay at my ranch tonight, and I will bring her into town myself tomorrow afternoon. You have my word. Your word means nothing to us, stranger, James Morrison said coldly. Then how about this? Hunter's voice dropped even lower, taking on a quality that made the hair rise on the back of Lily's neck. You can try to take her now, and some of you will die in the attempt. I guarantee that. Or you can accept my offer, go home to your families on Christmas Eve, and deal with this like civilized men tomorrow. Your choice. The silence that followed was broken only by the wind and the soft hiss of snow landing on the torches. Lily watched the men exchange glances, saw the calculation in their eyes. They outnumbered the cowboy significantly, but his confidence was absolute, and none of them seemed eager to test whether it was justified. Finally, Deputy Walsh spoke up. If she runs, Mr. Steele, I will come after you both. You understand that? She will not run, Hunter said firmly. How can you be so sure? Because I am asking her not to. He glanced over his shoulder at Lily, his eyes meeting hers for the first time fully. They were gray, she realized, the color of storm clouds, and they held something she could not quite name. Will you run, miss? Lily found her voice, though it came out barely above a whisper. No, I will not run. It was a lie, of course, or it should have been. She should agree to anything that would save her life in this moment and then flee at the first opportunity. But something in the way Hunter Steele looked at her, some quality of absolute certainty, made the words feel true even as she spoke them. Deputy Walsh let out a long breath. All right. All right, damn it. But I am holding you to this, Mr. Steele. You bring her to the sheriff's office tomorrow by 3 o'clock, or I will form a posse and come for you both. Understood? Understood, Hunter agreed. The men were not happy about it, but slowly they began to disperse, muttering among themselves as they trudged back toward town through the deepening snow. Bill Tucker lingered the longest, his eyes full of suspicion and anger as he looked from Hunter to Lily and back again. That woman is a killer, he said flatly. You are making a mistake protecting her. Maybe, Hunter replied, but it is my mistake to make. When the last of them had finally disappeared into the snowy darkness, Lily felt her knees go weak. She would have fallen if Hunter had not turned and caught her elbow, steadying her with a firm grip. Easy now, he said, his voice gentler than it had been with the mob. You are safe for the moment. Why? The word burst from her lips. Why would you do that? You do not even know me. Hunter studied her face in the dim light, and something flickered across his features too quick for her to read. I know you did not kill anyone, he said simply. How could you possibly know that? Because I know what a killer looks like, miss, and you are not it. He released her arm and moved to his horse, gathering the reins. The animal was well trained, standing perfectly still despite the tension and raised voices. Hunter swung back into the saddle with easy grace, then reached down toward Lily. Come on. We need to get moving before they change their minds. Can you ride? Lily stared up at his outstretched hand. She was trembling now, the adrenaline leaving her system and taking all her strength with it. The cold was seeping through her thin coat, and she realized distantly that her feet had lost all feeling. She had no real choice here, no alternative that did not end with her frozen corpse discovered in the morning. So she reached up and took his hand. His grip was strong and sure as he pulled her up behind him onto the horse. She had to wrap her arms around his waist to keep from sliding off, and she felt the solid warmth of him even through their heavy coats. He smelled of leather and horses and something clean like pine, and despite everything, Lily felt the first small flutter of something that was not quite fear in her chest. "Hold on," Hunter said, and then he urged the gelding into motion. They rode north out of Yuba City, following the snow-covered road at a pace fast enough to put distance between them and the town, but not so fast as to exhaust the horse. The snow continued to fall in thick curtains around them, and within minutes, Lily could no longer see more than a few feet in any direction. She pressed closer to Hunter's back, trying to steal what warmth she could, her teeth chattering despite her best efforts to control them. Hunter must have felt her shaking because he slowed the horse and half-turned in the saddle. "We are almost there," he said. "Just another mile or so. Can you hold on that long?" "Yes," Lily managed, though she was not at all certain it was true. True to his word, it was not long before lights appeared through the snow, warm and welcoming. The ranch materialized out of the darkness like something from a dream, a solid two-story house with smoke rising from the chimney, and several outbuildings arranged around a central yard. Hunter guided his horse directly to the barn, dismounting first and then helping Lily down. Her legs nearly gave out when her feet hit the ground, but again he was there to steady her. "Inside," he said, gesturing toward the house. "Go on. The door is unlocked." "I will be there as soon as I get my horse settled." Lily wanted to argue that she should help, but she was shaking so hard now that her teeth rattled, and her fingers would not cooperate enough to be useful anyway. So she stumbled through the snow to the house and pushed open the heavy wooden door. The warmth inside hit her like a wall, so sudden and complete that it almost hurt. She found herself in a large kitchen and living area, rustic but well-maintained, with a stone fireplace dominating one wall and a fire crackling merrily within it. There was a simple wooden table with 4 chairs, shelves lined with dishes and supplies, and a doorway that led deeper into the house. Everything was clean and orderly, the space of someone who took care with their surroundings. Lily moved closer to the fire on instinct, holding her hands out toward the flames. Sensation began to return to her fingers and toes in painful prickles. She was still standing there, dripping melted snow onto the floor, when the door opened and Hunter came in. He removed his hat and coat, hanging them on pegs by the door, then stamped the snow from his boots. Without the heavy outerwear, Lily could see him more clearly. He was indeed tall, well over 6 feet, with the lean, muscled build of a man who worked hard for his living. His dark hair was slightly damp from the snow, and his gray eyes were serious as they assessed her. "You need to get out of those wet clothes," he said practically. "I will find you something dry to put on." He disappeared through the doorway before Lily could respond, leaving her alone with her racing thoughts. Everything that had happened in the past hour seemed impossible, a nightmare she could not wake from. Mrs. Henderson dead, the accusation, the flight through the snow, and this stranger who had appeared from nowhere to save her. It made no sense. None of it made any sense. Hunter returned carrying a bundle of clothing which he set on the table. "These will be too big, but they are better than freezing. There is a bedroom just through there where you can change. I will make us something hot to drink." Lily took the clothes, her fingers clumsy as she clutched the soft flannel. "I do not understand," she said softly. "Why are you helping me?" Hunter met her eyes, and for a moment something vulnerable flickered across his face before his expression closed again. "Let us just say I know what it is like to be accused of something you did not do," he said quietly. "Now go change before you catch your death." The bedroom he had indicated was small but comfortable, with a simple bed covered in quilts and a washstand in the corner. Lily stripped off her wet dress and undergarments with shaking fingers, using a towel to dry herself before pulling on the clothes Hunter had provided. They were men's clothes, rough cotton trousers and a flannel shirt that hung past her hips, but they were warm and dry, and that was all that mattered. She had to roll the cuffs several times to free her hands, and the pants threatened to fall down until she cinched the belt as tight as it would go. When she emerged, Hunter had coffee brewing on the stove and was setting out bread and cheese on the table. He glanced up as she entered, and something that might have been amusement touched his eyes at the sight of her drowning in his clothes. "Better?" he asked. "Much, thank you." Lily sat gingerly at the table, still not quite able to believe this was real. "I should tell you what happened. I should explain. You do not owe me any explanations." Hunter poured coffee into 2 tin cups and brought them to the table, then sat down across from her. "Drink that. It will help." Lily wrapped her hands around the cup, savoring the warmth seeping into her palms. "But you deserve to know. You risked yourself for me. The least I can do is tell you the truth." Hunter studied her over the rim of his own cup. "All right then, tell me." So Lily did. She told him about coming to Yuba City 8 months earlier after her father died, leaving her with nothing but debts and a trunk of worn clothing. About finding work with Mrs. Henderson at the boarding house, grateful for the roof over her head and the 3 meals a day even though the wages were meager. She described Mrs. Henderson, a widow in her 60s who was strict but fair, who attended church every Sunday and paid her taxes on time and had no enemies that Lily knew of. "I served her tea tonight, same as I do every evening," Lily said, her voice steady despite the emotion roiling beneath. Chamomile with a spoonful of honey in the blue china cup she favored. "She was alive when I left her room. She smiled at me and said the tea was perfect, just the way she liked it. That was the last time I saw her breathing." "What happened then?" Hunter asked quietly. "I went back downstairs to finish the dishes. Maybe 20 minutes later I heard the crash and the screaming. Mrs. Henderson's nephew had come to call, bringing his wife. They found her dead, and someone said it looked like poison." Lily's hands tightened on the cup. "I do not know who poisoned her or why, but I swear on everything I hold sacred it was not me." "I believe you," Hunter said simply. The certainty in his voice made Lily's throat tighten. "How can you? You do not know me at all. For all you know, I could be exactly what they say I am." "No." Hunter shook his head. "You are scared and you are innocent, and those 2 things are written all over your face. A real killer would be either running scared or acting grieved. You are doing neither. You are just confused and hurt that anyone would think you capable of such a thing." His perception shook something loose in Lily's chest, and before she could stop herself, tears were streaming down her face. She tried to wipe them away, embarrassed by the show of weakness, but they kept coming in hot waves. Hunter stood and moved around the table, pulling up a chair next to hers. He did not touch her, just sat close, a solid presence while she fell apart. "I did not kill her," Lily sobbed. "I liked Mrs. Henderson. She was kind to me when no one else would be. Why would anyone think I would hurt her?" "Because you are convenient," Hunter said grimly. "You have no family here, no connections. It is easier to blame you than to look for the real killer." "But who would want to kill a woman like her? She had no money to speak of, no valuables worth stealing. She was just a widow running a boarding house." "That is what we need to figure out," Hunter said. "Because when I take you into town tomorrow, we need to have something more than just your word. We need evidence that you are innocent, or better yet, evidence that points to the real guilty party." Lily looked at him through her tears, seeing the determination in his face. "You would do that, help me find the truth." "I gave my word you would not hang for something you did not do," Hunter said. "I intend to keep it." The tears slowed, then stopped. Lily found a handkerchief in her pocket and wiped her face, feeling drained but also strangely hopeful for the first time since this nightmare began. "I do not even know how to thank you. You can thank me by eating something and then getting some rest. We have a lot to do tomorrow, and you will need your strength." They ate in companionable silence, the bread and cheese simple but filling. When the meal was finished, Hunter showed Lily to a guest bedroom upstairs, small but cozy with a quilt-covered bed and a window that looked out over the snow-shrouded landscape. "You will be safe here," he said from the doorway. "I sleep in the room across the hall. If you need anything, just call out." "Mr. Steele," Lily said as he turned to leave. "Why did you really help me? Please tell me the truth." Hunter was quiet for a long moment, his back to her. When he spoke, his voice was low and edged with old pain. 5 years ago, my younger brother was accused of stealing cattle. He did not do it, but he had no way to prove his innocence. They hanged him from an oak tree before the circuit judge could even arrive to hear the case. He paused, his shoulders tense. "I was away at the time, working a cattle drive up north. By the time I got home, he was already buried. I never got the chance to save him, to stand between him and the mob." He turned then, his gray eyes meeting hers. "So I guess you could say I am standing up for him tonight, a little too late to do him any good, but maybe in time to do you some." Lily felt her heart squeeze with sympathy and grief for this man who had lost someone he loved to injustice. "I am so sorry," she whispered. "So am I." Hunter's expression softened slightly. "Get some rest, Miss Lancaster. We will figure this out tomorrow." He closed the door quietly behind him, and Lily was alone with her thoughts. She changed into a nightshirt Hunter had left folded on the bed, then crawled beneath the quilts. The bed was comfortable and the room was warm, but sleep eluded her for a long time. Her mind kept replaying the evening's events, searching for some detail she might have missed, some clue to who could have poisoned Mrs. Henderson and why. She thought, too, about Hunter Steele, the cowboy who had appeared from nowhere to save her. There was something compelling about him beyond his physical presence, something in the quiet way he spoke and the steadiness of his gaze that made her feel safe for the first time in longer than she could remember. He had suffered loss and injustice himself, and yet he had chosen to help a stranger rather than let history repeat itself. That took courage and compassion in equal measure. When sleep finally claimed her, it was filled with confused dreams of snow and fire and gray eyes that promised protection. Lily woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee and bacon drifting up from downstairs. For a moment she was disoriented, unable to place where she was, and then the previous night's events came flooding back. She sat up quickly, her heart racing, and looked around the unfamiliar room. Christmas morning, and she was hiding in a stranger's ranch house, accused of murder and facing the gallows if she could not prove her innocence. She dressed quickly in her own clothes, which someone had brought upstairs and laid across a chair. They were dry now but wrinkled, and she did her best to smooth them out before heading downstairs. Hunter was in the kitchen, tending to something sizzling in a cast-iron skillet. He looked up as she entered, his expression warming slightly. "Morning," he said. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected, given everything." Lily moved closer to the stove, drawn by the warmth and the delicious smells. "Can I help with anything?" "Just about done. Have a seat." Hunter served up breakfast with an efficiency that spoke of long practice living alone. Eggs and bacon, fresh bread toasted over the fire, and strong black coffee. Lily ate hungrily, realizing she had barely touched food the day before. They ate mostly in silence, though it was not uncomfortable. There was something peaceful about the morning, the way the sun sparkled on the snow outside and the crackle of the fire in the hearth. When the meal was finished, Hunter pushed his plate aside and looked at Lily seriously. "We need to talk about what happens today. I promised to bring you into town by 3 o'clock, and I will keep that promise. But before we go, I want to visit a few people, ask some questions, see if we can find anything that might help your case." "Who would we talk to?" Lily asked. "For starters, the other people who lived in the boarding house. Someone might have seen or heard something useful. And Mrs. Henderson's nephew, the one who found her. I want to know more about him and his wife, whether they had any reason to want the old woman dead." "You think they might have done it?" Lily's eyes widened. "But he seemed so distraught last night. I heard him through the walls crying out when he found her." "People can fake grief," Hunter said grimly. "Especially if there is something to gain from a death. Did Mrs. Henderson have any money?" "Property, anything worth killing for." Lily considered this. "She owned the boarding house outright, I know that, and she must have had some savings, but I cannot imagine it was a fortune. She lived modestly, never spent money on luxuries. Still, it might be enough motive for someone." Hunter stood and began clearing the dishes. "We will start there. I know a few people in Yuba City, folks who might be willing to talk to me even if the rest of the town is baying for blood. But you need to stay here, out of sight. If anyone sees you before I bring you in officially, it will only make things worse." "But I could help," Lily protested. "I know the boarding house, know the people who lived there. They might talk to me. Or they might try to string you up," Hunter said flatly. "No. You stay here where it is safe. I will be back before noon, and then we will decide our next move together." Lily wanted to argue, but she could see the determination in his face and knew it would be pointless. Besides, he was right. She would only be a liability in town, a target for anyone who still thought she was guilty. So she nodded reluctantly. "All right, but please be careful. If they turn on you because you are helping me." "I can take care of myself," Hunter assured her. "Just stay inside, keep the door locked, and do not answer for anyone but me." "Understood." "Understood." Hunter left shortly after, saddling his horse and riding south toward Yuba City through the brilliant white landscape. Lily watched from the window until he disappeared from view, then turned to survey the empty house. She felt restless and useless, pacing the main room like a caged animal. Finally, unable to sit still, she began to clean. It gave her hands something to do and her mind a temporary respite from the worry gnawing at her. She washed the breakfast dishes and tidied the kitchen, swept the floors and dusted the furniture. The house was already well kept, but there were small things to do, little improvements to make. She found herself studying the space as she worked, noting the small details that revealed Hunter's character. The books on the shelf, mostly practical volumes about ranching and animal husbandry, but also a worn copy of Shakespeare's plays. The careful way everything was organized and maintained. The complete absence of any personal mementos or photographs, as if he had deliberately stripped away anything that might remind him of the past. It made her heart ache for him, this lonely cowboy who had saved her life. Hours passed slowly. Lily made herself a simple lunch from the supplies in the kitchen, then returned to watching out the window for any sign of Hunter's return. The sun was high overhead now, making the snow glitter like diamonds, and she judged it must be close to noon. He had said he would be back by then, and she found herself growing anxious as the time stretched on with no sign of him. It was nearly 1 o'clock when she finally saw movement on the southern road. Hunter's bay gelding appeared through the trees, moving at a steady trot. Lily felt relief flood through her, but it was tempered when she saw Hunter's expression as he dismounted. He looked grim and troubled, his jaw tight. She met him at the door as he came in, stamping snow from his boots. "What did you find out?" she asked immediately. Hunter removed his hat and ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration. "Quite a bit, actually. None of it good for the late Mrs. Henderson's nephew." He moved to the fire and held his hands out to warm them while Lily waited impatiently for him to continue. Finally, he turned to face her. The nephew's name is Charles Henderson. He moved here about 6 months ago with his wife Patricia, said he wanted to be closer to his aunt in her declining years. Very solicitous, very concerned. He visited her regularly, always asking about her health and her affairs. That sounds like he cared about her, Lily said slowly, or that he was very interested in her property. Hunter's expression was dark. I talked to several people who know the family. Turns out Charles Henderson has a reputation as a gambler and a drunk. He has debts all over town, owes money to some very unsavory characters. And his wife, Patricia, came from money but was cut off by her family when she married him. They are living in a rented room above the saloon, struggling to make ends meet. Lily felt her stomach sink. So they needed money, desperately, and Mrs. Henderson was Charles's only living relative with any assets to speak of. If she died without a will, everything would go to him as next of kin. Did she have a will? That is the interesting part. Hunter's eyes were intent on hers. I spoke to the lawyer who handled her affairs. Apparently, Mrs. Henderson came to see him just last week, said she wanted to draw up a proper will. She was going to leave the boarding house to you. Lily stared at him in shock. To me? But why? I have only worked for her for 8 months. According to the lawyer, she told him you were the only person who had shown her genuine kindness and care in her old age. She wanted to make sure you were provided for. The will was supposed to be signed and witnessed this coming Monday. Hunter paused, letting the implications sink in. She died 2 days before it could be made official. So if Charles knew about the will. Lily's voice trailed off as the pieces began to fall into place. He would have had reason to kill her before she could sign it. Exactly, and here is another interesting detail. Charles and Patricia were both at the boarding house yesterday afternoon. Several people saw them going in and out. Charles claims they were just visiting, but they were there for over an hour, and Mrs. Henderson was alone in her room for much of that time. They could have poisoned her tea, Lily said, her mind racing. I always prepared it the same way, left it steeping in the pot in the kitchen while I finished other chores. Anyone who lived in the house or visited regularly would know my routine. They could have added something to the pot before I poured it into her cup. That is what I am thinking too. Hunter moved closer, his expression serious. But we need proof. Right now it is just speculation, and speculation will not save you from the gallows. What do? We talk to Charles and Patricia directly. See if we can get them to slip up, reveal something that proves their guilt. Hunter glanced at the clock on the mantel. We do not have much time. I promise to have you at the sheriff's office by 3, and I will not break my word. But we can make a stop at the boarding house first, catch them off guard before they have time to prepare. Lily nodded, fear and determination warring in her chest. Let us go then. The sooner we confront them, the sooner we can end this nightmare. They rode back to Yuba City together on Hunter's horse, Lily once again sitting behind him with her arms around his waist. The town looked different in the bright afternoon sunlight, the snow making everything clean and almost cheerful. People were out and about despite the cold, families gathering for Christmas celebrations, children playing in the snow. Several people stopped to stare as Hunter and Lily rode past, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. The boarding house stood on a quiet street near the edge of town, a 2-story structure with a wide front porch. It looked innocent in the daylight, but Lily felt a chill run through her as they approached. This was where Mrs. Henderson had died, where her life had been stolen and Lily's had been irrevocably changed. Hunter tied his horse to the porch rail and helped Lily dismount. Let me do most of the talking, he said quietly. Just watch their reactions, see if anything seems off. They climbed the porch steps together, and Hunter knocked firmly on the door. For a long moment, there was no answer, and Lily wondered if perhaps Charles and Patricia were not home. Then she heard footsteps inside, and the door swung open to reveal a man in his early 30s with thinning brown hair and bloodshot eyes. He blinked at them in surprise, his gaze moving from Hunter to Lily and back again. "Charles Henderson?" Hunter asked. "Yes. Who are you?" "Name is Hunter Steele. I am the one who is keeping Miss Lancaster from being lynched by an angry mob. I would like to ask you and your wife a few questions about Mrs. Henderson's death." Charles's expression shifted, surprise giving way to anger. "You brought her here. That woman murdered my aunt, and you brought her right to the door. What kind of man are you? The kind who does not believe in condemning someone without evidence," Hunter said calmly. "May we come in?" "Absolutely not. I have nothing to say to either of you." Charles started to close the door, but Hunter put his hand against it, holding it open with effortless strength. "Then maybe you would prefer to have this conversation in front of the sheriff. I am sure he would be very interested to hear about your gambling debts and your aunt's planned will." Charles went pale. "I do not know what you are talking about." "I think you do." Hunter's voice was hard now, all pretense of civility gone. "You knew your aunt was planning to leave everything to Miss Lancaster here. You knew that will was supposed to be signed on Monday. And you knew that if she died before then, you would inherit everything as her only blood relative. That is a powerful motive for murder." "That is a lie," Charles sputtered, but his eyes were darting nervously, looking anywhere but at Hunter or Lily. "I loved my aunt. I would never have hurt her." "Then prove it," Hunter said. "Let us search this house. If there is poison somewhere, something that was used to kill Mrs. Henderson, let us find it and clear this up once and for all." "You have no right," Charles began, but a woman's voice interrupted from inside the house. "Charles, who is at the door?" A woman appeared behind him, thin and sharp-featured with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her eyes went wide when she saw Lily, and her hand flew to her throat. "Patricia, go back inside," Charles said urgently, but she was already pushing past him, her face flushed with anger. "How dare you show your face here?" she hissed at Lily. "You killed a defenseless old woman for her money, and now you have the audacity to come back." "I did not kill anyone," Lily said, finding her voice despite the fear curling in her stomach. "But I think you know who did." Patricia's eyes flickered just for an instant, and Lily saw something there that confirmed her suspicions. Guilt, fear, knowledge. The woman knew more than she was saying. "We should search the house," Hunter said again, his attention focused on Patricia now. "Unless you have something to hide." "We have nothing to hide," Patricia said shrilly. "Charles, tell them to leave. Tell them they cannot just accuse us of such horrible things." But Charles was not listening to his wife. He was staring at Lily with an expression of dawning horror, as if seeing her truly for the first time. "She was going to leave you everything," he said, his voice hollow. "She told you, did she not? She told you about the will." "No," Lily said honestly. "I did not know about any will until today. Mrs. Henderson never said a word to me about it." "She must have," Charles insisted almost desperately. "Otherwise, why would you? Why would anyone?" He trailed off, and in that moment of silence, Patricia let out a small, choked sound. Everyone turned to look at her. Her face had gone white, her hands trembling as she gripped the door frame. "Patricia," Charles said uncertainly. "Patricia, what is wrong?" "I did not mean for it to go this way," she whispered, so quietly that Lily almost missed the words. "I just wanted her to sleep. I just wanted to give us time to talk to her, to convince her to change her mind about the will, but I must have used too much. I must have made a mistake." The confession hung in the air between them, terrible and absolute. Charles staggered backward, his face going through a range of emotions too quick to track. Shock, disbelief, horror, and finally, sickening understanding. "You poisoned her," he said, his voice breaking. "Patricia, tell me you did not actually poison my aunt. What choice did we have?" Patricia's voice rose, taking on a hysterical edge. "We were about to lose everything. Those men you owe money to, they were going to hurt you, Charles. They told me what they would do if you did not pay up. And then your aunt tells us she is leaving her property to some nobody, some girl she barely knows." She pointed an accusing finger at Lily. "This was supposed to be ours. We had been kind to her, visited her, cared about her, not this stranger who showed up out of nowhere." "So you killed her," Hunter said, his voice cold as winter ice. "You murdered an old woman because you thought you deserved her money." "I did not mean to kill her," Patricia sobbed. "I swear I did not. I just put some of the sleeping draught in her tea, the same medicine she took sometimes when her arthritis was bad. I thought it would just make her drowsy, give us a chance to talk sense into her. But she must have had a weak heart or something. She just stopped breathing." "And then you let everyone think I did it," Lily said, anger finally breaking through her fear. "You watched them accuse me, chase me into the snow, and you said nothing. You would have let me hang for your crime." Patricia's tears were flowing freely now, but there was no sympathy in Lily's heart for her. This woman had killed a kind old lady and tried to blame it on an innocent person to save herself. She deserved no pity. Charles had sunk down onto the porch steps, his head in his hands. He looked broken, defeated, all the bluster gone from him. "I did not know," he said hoarsely. "I swear to God I did not know what she had done. I thought it was you. I really thought it was you." "But you were happy enough to believe it," Hunter pointed out, "because it was convenient. Because it meant you still inherited." Deputy Walsh chose that moment to arrive, probably drawn by the raised voices or perhaps simply making his rounds. He took one look at the scene on the porch and his hand went to his gun. "What is going on here?" he demanded. "Mr. Steele, you were supposed to bring Miss Lancaster to the sheriff's office, not parade her around town." "Change of plans," Hunter said. "Miss Lancaster is innocent, but I think you will find Mrs. Patricia Henderson here has a confession to make." It took the better part of an hour to sort everything out. Patricia broke down completely under Deputy Walsh's questioning, admitting everything between sobs. Charles sat silent and pale, not defending his wife but not condemning her either. A search of their room above the saloon turned up the bottle of sleeping medicine, still half full, that Patricia had used to poison Mrs. Henderson's tea. Lily watched it all unfold with a strange sense of detachment, as if it were happening to someone else. She felt no triumph in Patricia's confession, only a deep sadness for the waste of it all. Mrs. Henderson dead for nothing more than money and desperation. Patricia facing the gallows herself now, and Charles left to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. "You are free to go, Miss Lancaster," Deputy Walsh said eventually, his young face apologetic. "I am sorry for what you went through. We should have investigated more thoroughly before jumping to conclusions." "Yes, you should have," Hunter said sharply. "An innocent woman nearly died because of your rush to judgment." The deputy flushed but nodded. "You are right. I will do better in the future." They left him to deal with the Hendersons and walked back through the town together, leading Hunter's horse behind them. Lily felt exhausted, drained by the emotional upheaval of the past day and night. But underneath the exhaustion was a growing sense of relief and freedom. She was innocent, proven beyond doubt. She would not hang. She would not spend her life running from false accusations. "What will you do now?" Hunter asked as they reached the edge of town. Lily stopped walking and looked at him. She had been so focused on proving her innocence that she had not thought beyond it, had not considered what came next. "I suppose I will look for work," she said slowly. though I doubt anyone in Yuba City will want to hire me after all this. Perhaps I should move on to another town, start fresh somewhere else." Hunter was quiet for a moment, studying her face with those storm-gray eyes. When he spoke, his voice was careful, almost hesitant. "You could stay at the ranch. For a while, I mean. Until you figure out what you want to do next. I could use some help around the place, and it would give you time to recover from all this without having to worry about finding work right away." Lily's heart gave a strange flutter in her chest. "I could not impose on you like that. You have already done so much for me." "It would not be an imposition," Hunter said. "To be honest, I could use the company. It gets lonely out there, just me and the horses. And you are a good person, Lily Lancaster. You deserve a chance to catch your breath and heal." The way he said her name, with such quiet sincerity, made something warm unfold in Lily's chest. She realized that she wanted to stay, wanted more time with this complicated, compassionate man who had saved her life. There was something between them, some connection that had formed in the crucible of danger and trust, and she wanted to explore it. "All right," she said softly. "I will stay. For a little while at least. And thank you, Hunter, for everything." His smile was small but genuine, transforming his serious face into something almost boyish. "Come on then, let us go home." They rode back to the ranch together through the snowy afternoon, and Lily found herself relaxing against Hunter's back, feeling safer than she had in longer than she could remember. The nightmare was over. She was free, and she had found an unexpected ally in the most unlikely of places. As Hunter's ranch came into view, solid and welcoming in the winter landscape, Lily allowed herself to think that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something good. The weeks that followed Mrs. Henderson's death and Patricia's arrest passed in a blur of quiet routine and growing familiarity. Lily settled into life at Hunter's ranch with surprising ease, finding comfort in the daily rhythms of work and simple living. Hunter was a generous host and an easy companion, never pushing her to talk when she needed silence, but always willing to listen when she wanted to share her thoughts. She helped around the house and with some of the lighter ranch work, feeding chickens and gathering eggs, helping to mend tack and prepare meals. Hunter was teaching her to ride properly too, patient and encouraging as she learned to control the gentle mare he had assigned to her use. It felt good to be useful again, to have purpose beyond simply surviving. They talked often during those cold January evenings, sitting by the fire after supper was cleared away. Hunter told her about his life, about growing up on a ranch in Montana with his parents and younger brother Samuel. About the devastating day he learned of Samuel's death and the months of grief and anger that followed. About eventually selling his family's ranch because he could not bear the memories and moving south to California to start over. Lily shared her own story in return. The childhood spent moving from town to town as her father chased work, never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots. Her mother's death when Lily was 12, leaving her to keep house for a father who loved her but did not know how to show it. His passing the previous spring, peaceful in his sleep but leaving her utterly alone in the world. "I thought I would be all right," she admitted one night, staring into the flames. "I thought I was strong enough to make it on my own, but it has been harder than I expected, until Mrs. Henderson gave me work. I was not sure I would survive the winter." "You are stronger than you think," Hunter said quietly. "What you went through would have broken a lot of people, but you kept going. That takes real courage." "I do not feel very courageous," Lily confessed. "Most days I feel terrified. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward despite it." Hunter met her eyes across the firelight. "You have plenty of that, Lily." The way he looked at her when he said, it made her heart race. and Lily realized with a start that her feelings for Hunter were shifting, deepening into something more than simple gratitude. She found herself noticing small things about him. The way his hands moved with such careful precision when working with leather or wood. The rare smile that occasionally broke through his serious expression. The gentleness he showed toward his animals and, increasingly, toward her. She caught him watching her sometimes too, his gray eyes thoughtful and warm. He never said anything, never pushed for more than she was willing to give, but the awareness between them was growing, becoming harder to ignore. One afternoon in late January, Lily was in the barn helping Hunter mend a broken stall door when she accidentally hit her thumb with the hammer. She yelped in pain and dropped the tool, cradling her injured hand against her chest. Hunter was beside her in an instant, his face creased with concern. "Let me see," he said, taking her hand gently in both of his. His touch was warm and careful as he examined her thumb, checking for serious damage. "Does not look broken, but it is going to bruise something fierce." "I am fine," Lily said, though in truth the throbbing pain was bringing tears to her eyes. "Just clumsy." "You are not clumsy. These things happen." Hunter kept hold of her hand, his thumb brushing softly over her uninjured fingers in a gesture that seemed unconscious. "Come inside. We will get some ice on it to keep the swelling down." But neither of them moved. They stood there in the dim barn, Hunter still holding Lily's hand, their faces closer than they had ever been. Lily could see the flecks of darker gray in his eyes, could smell the scent of leather and horses that clung to him. Her heart was pounding, though no longer from pain. "Hunter," she whispered, not sure what she was asking for but knowing she needed something. His expression shifted, something hungry and yearning breaking through his careful control. His free hand came up to cup her cheek, his calloused palm rough against her soft skin. "Tell me to stop," he said, his voice low and strained. "Tell me if this is not what you want." In answer, Lily rose up on her toes and closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that felt like coming home. Hunter made a sound deep in his chest and pulled her closer, his arms coming around her to hold her tight against him. The kiss was sweet and fierce at once, full of all the unspoken feelings that had been building between them for weeks. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Hunter rested his forehead against hers. "I have been wanting to do that for a long time," he admitted. "So have I," Lily confessed, smiling despite her still throbbing thumb. "I was starting to think you never would. I did not want to take advantage. You have been through so much, and you are staying in my house under my protection. I did not want you to feel obligated or pressured into anything." Lily pulled back enough to look him in the eye. "I do not feel obligated, Hunter. I feel lucky. Lucky that you found me that night, lucky that you believed in me when no one else would, and lucky that I get to know you now. What I feel for you has nothing to do with obligation, and everything to do with you being a good, kind, honorable man." Hunter's smile was brilliant, transforming his whole face. "You make it very difficult to maintain my gentlemanly restraint when you say things like that." "Then maybe you should stop trying so hard to be a gentleman," Lily suggested, feeling bold and reckless in a way she never had before. His eyes darkened with promise. "Careful, Miss Lancaster. I might just take you up on that." But he did not kiss her again then, though Lily could see the effort it took for him to step back and put some proper distance between them. Instead, he took her hand again, the injured one, and led her gently back to the house where he wrapped ice in a cloth and held it against her bruised thumb while they sat together on the settee. They did not speak much for the rest of the afternoon, but the silence was comfortable and charged at once. Everything had shifted between them, some invisible boundary crossed, and Lily knew with absolute certainty that her life had just changed again. But this time it was a welcome change, one she embraced with her whole heart. As winter gave way to early spring, Lily and Hunter's relationship deepened and grew. They were careful about propriety, aware that she was living in his home unmarried, and wanting to avoid any scandal that might damage her already precarious reputation in Yuba City. But within the privacy of the ranch, they allowed themselves to be open with their affection. Stolen kisses in the barn, hands held while walking the property, quiet conversations late into the night about their hopes and dreams for the future. Hunter told her he loved her one evening in March, the words simple and unadorned but all the more powerful for their honesty. They were standing on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, and he turned to her with that serious expression she had come to know so well. "I love you, Lily," he said quietly. "I know it has not been very long, and I know the circumstances that brought you here were terrible, but I cannot deny what I feel anymore. You have brought light and warmth back into my life, and I do not want to imagine going back to how things were before I met you." Lily felt tears prick her eyes, but they were happy tears this time. "I love you too, Hunter. I think I started falling for you that very first night when you stood between me and that mob. You saved my life, but more than that, you gave me hope when I had none left." He kissed her then, slow and deep, and when they broke apart he said, "Marry me, Lily, make this official, make this real." "Yes," she answered without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you." They were wed in April in a simple ceremony at the small church in Yuba City, with only a handful of friends in attendance. Deputy Walsh came, looking pleased to see Lily happy and safe. The lawyer who had drawn up Mrs. Henderson's will attended as well, bringing news that moved Lily to tears. Before her death, Mrs. Henderson had told him that if anything happened to her before the official will could be signed, she wanted Lily to know that the boarding house was meant to be hers. He had taken it upon himself to honor those wishes, working with the courts to transfer the property to Lily despite the lack of a formal will. "She wanted you to have a home," the lawyer said kindly, "a place that was truly yours. This seemed like the best way to honor her memory." Lily accepted the gift with profound gratitude and immediately decided to sell the boarding house. The memories there were too painful, and besides, she had a home now with Hunter. They used the money from the sale to expand the ranch, buying additional livestock and hiring a couple of ranch hands to help with the growing operation. Life settled into a new rhythm, one built on partnership and love. Lily learned the ranching business alongside Hunter, proving herself capable and quick to learn. She had a good head for numbers and helped him manage the accounts and plan for the future. Hunter, in turn, supported her interests and encouraged her to pursue the things that brought her joy. She started a small vegetable garden that first summer, and by autumn, it had grown into something impressive enough to supply not just their own table but to sell produce in town. The people of Yuba City slowly warmed to Lily again once the truth about Mrs. Henderson's death became widely known. Some apologized for their rush to judgment. Others simply acted as if nothing had ever happened, but either way, Lily and Hunter became accepted members of the community. They were known as hardworking, honest, and generous with those in need, and their reputation grew along with their ranch. In the spring of 1887, Lily discovered she was pregnant. She told Hunter one evening over supper, watching his face carefully for his reaction. For a moment he just stared at her, as if unable to process the words, and then the most beautiful smile spread across his features. "A baby," he said wonderingly. "We are going to have a baby, we are," Lily confirmed, her own smile matching his. "Sometime in early October, the doctor thinks." Hunter stood and pulled her into his arms, holding her close with a tenderness that made her heart swell. "I love you so much," he whispered against her hair. "Thank you. Thank you for this gift, for choosing to build a life with me." "Thank you for saving mine," Lily whispered back, "for seeing the truth when no one else would, and for giving me a reason to hope again." Their son was born on a clear October morning, healthy and strong with a good set of lungs that he exercised frequently. They named him Samuel, after Hunter's lost brother, and Hunter cried when he held his son for the first time, overcome with joy and the healing of old wounds. Watching her husband cradle their newborn, Lily felt a profound sense of peace and rightness. She thought back to that terrible night in the snow, to the fear and desperation that had consumed her. She thought about the stranger on horseback who had appeared from nowhere to save her, who had blocked the path and declared her under his protection. She thought about all the twists of fate and fortune that had brought them to this moment. "What are you thinking about?" Hunter asked softly, looking up from their son's tiny face. "About how sometimes the worst moments of our lives can lead to the best things," Lily said. "If I had not been falsely accused, if I had not run into the snow that night, I never would have met you. I never would have found this life, this love. I never would have known it was possible to be this happy." Hunter reached out and took her hand, linking their fingers together. "I think about that too sometimes, about how close I came to not being on that road that night. I almost went home a different way, almost missed you entirely, but something made me choose that path, and I thank God every day that I did." "You really think it was God?" Lily asked curiously. "Or just chance?" "I like to think it was Samuel," Hunter said quietly, his eyes distant. "I like to think he saw you in trouble and somehow guided me to that place at that moment so I could help you the way I could not help him. Maybe that is foolish, but it brings me comfort." "It is not foolish," Lily assured him. "And whether it was divine intervention or blind luck, I am grateful for it. I am grateful for you, Hunter Steele, every single day." As the years passed, their family grew. 2 more children followed Samuel, a daughter they named Rose in 1889 and another son they named Thomas in 1892. The ranch prospered and expanded, becoming one of the most successful operations in the region. Hunter and Lily worked side by side through it all, partners in every sense of the word, their love deepening with each passing season. They faced challenges, of course. A severe drought in 1890 that tested their resources and resolve. A barn fire in 1893 that destroyed valuable equipment and nearly took the lives of some of their horses. Illnesses and injuries, financial setbacks and personal losses. But they faced everything together, drawing strength from each other, and from the foundation they had built. On their 10th wedding anniversary in 1896, Hunter surprised Lily with a gift. He led her out to the eastern pasture where a small structure had been erected, a beautiful gazebo made of white painted wood with a bench inside and climbing roses planted all around it. "I built it myself," he said, looking almost shy. "I know it is not much, but I wanted to create something beautiful for you. Somewhere you could come to sit and think, to have a moment of peace when the children get too loud or the work gets too hard." Lily walked slowly around the gazebo, trailing her fingers along the smooth wood, marveling at the craftsmanship and the thought behind it. "It is perfect," she said, tears gathering in her eyes. "Absolutely perfect, but you know what would make it even better?" "What?" Hunter asked. "If you were sitting in it with me." They sat together on the bench, Hunter's arm around Lily's shoulders, watching the sun set over the land they had built together. In the distance, they could hear their children playing, Samuel's voice calling out instructions to his younger siblings in some game they had invented. The sound filled Lily's heart with such profound joy that she thought she might burst from it. You ever think about that night?" Hunter asked quietly. "The night we met, sometimes," Lily admitted. "Though it seems like a lifetime ago now, I was so scared, so certain my life was over. I could not have imagined then that I would end up here with you with all of this." "I think about it often," Hunter confessed. "I think about how easily things could have gone differently. If I had been a minute later, if I had not stopped, if I had not decided to protect you. Any of those things could have changed everything." "But you did stop," Lily said, turning to look at him. "You put yourself between me and danger without knowing anything about me except that I needed help. That says everything about who you are, Hunter. You are a man who protects the innocent, who fights for what is right even when it costs you. That is why I fell in love with you." "I fell in love with you because of your strength," Hunter replied. "Your courage in the face of impossible odds, your kindness even toward those who wronged you, your determination to build a good life no matter what obstacles stood in your way. You inspire me, Lily. You always have." They kissed then, a sweet familiar kiss that still held sparks of the passion that had drawn them together. When they pulled apart, Hunter rested his forehead against hers, just as he had that first time in the barn. "Thank you," he whispered, "for saying yes to me all those years ago. For taking a chance on a lonely cowboy with a broken heart. For giving me a family and a future when I thought I had neither." "Thank you for saving me," Lily whispered back. "In every way a person can be saved." As the sun dipped below the horizon, and the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Lily reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She thought about the terrified girl running through the snow, about the cowboy who had appeared like an answer to a prayer, about all the moments of fear and hope and love that had woven together to create this beautiful life. She thought about Mrs. Henderson, whose death had been the catalyst for everything, and said a silent prayer of thanks for the old woman's kindness and generosity. Without her gift, without her plan to leave Lily the boarding house, Patricia might never have acted so rashly, and Lily might never have been forced to flee into the snow. It was a terrible way for things to have unfolded, and Lily would never be glad for Mrs. Henderson's death. But she could acknowledge the strange workings of fate that had brought good from tragedy, love from fear, and a future from the ashes of the past. In the years that followed, Lily and Hunter became pillars of the Yuba City community. They were known for their fairness in business dealings, their willingness to help neighbors in need, and their devotion to each other and their growing family. They added 2 more children to their brood, twin girls in 1895 named Grace and Hope, bringing their total to 5 healthy, happy children who filled the ranch house with laughter and chaos. Samuel, their eldest, grew into a serious young man much like his father, with a natural talent for working with horses and a deep sense of responsibility. Rose was spirited and clever, always asking questions and challenging assumptions. Thomas inherited his mother's head for numbers and his father's quiet strength. The twins, Grace and Hope, were inseparable and mischievous, keeping everyone on their toes with their elaborate schemes and innocent faces. Hunter proved to be an excellent father, patient and loving but firm when necessary. He taught his sons everything he knew about ranching and his daughters that they were just as capable as any boy. Lily watched him with their children and felt her love for him grow even deeper, if such a thing were possible. They faced the new century together, watching as the world changed around them. Electricity came to Yuba City in 1902, and they had the ranch house wired, marveling at the brightness of electric lights after so many years of oil lamps. Automobiles began appearing on the roads, though Hunter maintained that horses were more reliable and considerably less temperamental. The frontier was closing, the Wild West they had known slowly giving way to civilization and progress. Through it all, Lily and Hunter remained devoted to each other and to the life they had built. They still sat together on the porch most evenings, watching the sun set and talking about their day. They still stole kisses in the barn when they thought no one was looking. They still held hands while walking the property, their fingers intertwined as naturally as breathing. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1911, their children threw them a party, inviting half the town to celebrate. Lily wore her best dress, still able to fit into the same size she had worn at 23, and Hunter wore a new suit that made him look distinguished and handsome. They danced together while their children and friends looked on, moving in perfect synchronization after so many years as partners. 25 years, Lily marveled as they swayed to the music. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and sometimes it feels like we have been together forever. Forever would not be long enough, Hunter said, his voice still capable of making her heart flutter even after all this time. I love you just as much today as I did the day I married you. More, actually, because now I know exactly how lucky I am. We are both lucky, Lily corrected. Luckier than we had any right to be, given how we started. Maybe, Hunter conceded, or maybe we just recognized something worth fighting for and refused to let it go. As the evening wore on and the party continued around them, Lily found a quiet moment to step outside onto the porch, needing a breath of fresh air and a moment to process the overwhelming gratitude she felt. So much had changed since that terrifying night in the snow 26 years ago. She was no longer the frightened girl with nothing and no one. She was a wife, a mother, a successful businesswoman, and a valued member of her community. She had everything she had ever dreamed of and so much more. Hunter found her there, as she knew he would, and wrapped his arms around her from behind, pulling her back against his chest. They stood like that in comfortable silence, looking out over the ranch that had become their kingdom, listening to the sounds of laughter and music drifting from inside. Happy? Hunter asked softly. Unbelievably so, Lily confirmed. Are you? More than I ever thought possible. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Thank you for building this life with me, Lily, for being my partner in all things, for loving me even when I did not think I deserved it. You have always deserved it, Lily said firmly. From the moment you put yourself between me and that mob, you proved what kind of man you are, the kind worth loving with everything I have. They stayed there together as the stars came out one by one. The same stars that had watched over them that first night when a terrified woman and a lonely cowboy found each other in the snow. The same stars that had witnessed their first kiss, their wedding vows, the births of their children, and every precious moment in between. As Lily stood in her husband's embrace, surrounded by the evidence of their love and hard work, she thought about the words Hunter had spoken that night. She is under my protection. 3 simple words that had changed the course of her life, that had saved her from death and given her a future beyond her wildest dreams. He had protected her then, and he had protected her ever since. Protected her heart, her happiness, her dreams and hopes and fears. And she had done the same for him, helping him heal from old wounds and build something new and beautiful from the ashes of tragedy. Their children grew and eventually started families of their own. Samuel married a sweet girl named Emma and took over most of the daily operations of the ranch, allowing Hunter to slow down a bit as he aged. Rose became a teacher in Yuba City, fierce in her devotion to education and women's rights. Thomas went to university and became an accountant, though he visited the ranch often and helped manage the financial side of the business. Grace and Hope opened a dress shop together in town, their creations sought after throughout the region. By 1920, Lily and Hunter were grandparents many times over, their house often filled with the sounds of little ones playing and exploring. Hunter's hair had gone completely silver, and Lily's had threads of gray running through the dark strands, but they remained active and engaged with life, still working the ranch, though, at a slower pace than before. They celebrated their 35th anniversary quietly, just the two of them, taking a picnic out to the gazebo Hunter had built all those years ago. The roses had grown wild and beautiful, creating a fragrant curtain of pink and red blooms. They sat on the same bench, older and grayer but no less in love, sharing bread and cheese and memories. "You have any regrets?" Lily asked, a question she had never posed before. Hunter considered it seriously, as he considered everything. "Only one," he said finally. "I wish I could have saved my brother the way I saved you. I wish I could have been there for him." "I know you do," Lily said gently. "But you have honored his memory in the best way possible. You created a life full of love and family and goodness. You raised children who know the value of justice and compassion. You made a difference in this world, Hunter. Samuel would be proud of you. I hope so." Hunter's eyes were distant for a moment, then focused back on her. "But that is my only regret. Everything else, every choice I made that led me to you and to this life, I would make the same way 1,000 times over." "Even the hard parts?" Lily asked. "The drought and the fire and all the struggles, especially the hard parts," Hunter said firmly. "Because those are what taught us how strong we are together. Those are what proved our love could weather any storm." He took her hand, his thumb brushing over the gold band she had worn for 35 years. "I meant what I said that night, Lily. You are under my protection always and forever. Until my last breath, I will stand between you and anything that threatens your happiness." Lily felt tears slip down her cheeks, but they were happy tears. "And you are under mine," she said. "We protect each other. We have from the beginning." They stayed in the gazebo until the sun set, talking and laughing and remembering. When the stars came out, they walked hand in hand back to the house, their steps slower than they once were, but no less sure. This was their life, built on a foundation of trust and love that had been tested by fire and proven unbreakable. Hunter lived to see his 80th birthday in 1935, surrounded by children and grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. He remained sharp-minded until the end, though his body grew weaker with each passing year. Lily cared for him devotedly, just as he had cared for her through various illnesses and injuries over the decades. They were still each other's greatest comfort, still each other's first thought in the morning and last at night. He died peacefully in his sleep one spring morning, and Lily woke to find him gone, his expression serene and his hand still holding hers. She grieved deeply, but without bitterness, grateful for the 50 years they had been given together, grateful for the love that had sustained them through everything. She lived another 10 years, watching her grandchildren grow and welcoming more great-grandchildren into the world. She remained active in the community and on the ranch, her mind sharp even as her body aged. She spoke often of Hunter, keeping his memory alive for the younger generations who had never known him. She told them the story of how they met, of the cowboy who had saved a frightened girl in the snow and found love in the process. "He was the best man I ever knew," she would say. "Brave and kind and true. He taught me that real love is not just feeling, it is action. It is choosing every day to protect and support and believe in each other." Lily passed away in her sleep in 1945, at the age of 83. Her children and grandchildren mourned her deeply, but took comfort in knowing she was reunited with the great love of her life. They buried her beside Hunter on a hill overlooking the ranch, beneath an oak tree that had stood witness to so many years of their life together. Their story became part of the family lore, passed down through generations as an example of true love and courage. The grandchildren told their children, who told their children, keeping alive the memory of that snowy Christmas Eve in 1885, when a cowboy on horseback saw a woman in trouble and chose to help her. "She was under my protection," he had said, and he had meant it with his whole heart. Those words had been a promise that lasted a lifetime, a declaration that became the foundation of a love story that spanned half a century, and created a legacy that would endure for generations to come. In the end, it did not matter that they had met under terrible circumstances, that their love story had begun with false accusations and fear. What mattered was the choice they made to trust each other, to build something beautiful from broken pieces, to believe that even in the darkest moments, hope and love could prevail. Their descendants still work the ranch in Yuba City, California, still tell the story of Lily and Hunter, still remind each other that real love is worth fighting for. And sometimes, on snowy Christmas Eves, when the wind howls and the darkness seems overwhelming, they remember that one act of courage and compassion changed everything, proving that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, and that true love, once found, can last forever.